All right, so we're going to be doing a video today, and it's going to show a very simple, fun way to explore watercolor. I will be using Yupo paper. It is a very nice paper because the watercolor does not absorb into the paper, and then you do not have the curling that sometimes occurs. You do not have to use these same products that I am using. Any type of watercolor will work. I just want to highlight some of my favorites and just also what I am using. Besides the Yupo paper having a nice softness to it, it is also able to be wiped away. So if I make a mistake, I can remove it and start fresh. I will be using these watercolor tubes. They are Tolland's Art Creation, and I actually got them from Wet Paint. So that's a resource in the cities where you can order online. When I ordered those paints, I was also able to try some other paints. So in today's painting, I will be using Daniel Smith. And that's quinacridone purple, quinacridone purple, caninachrome. Not saying that right, but there, maybe that's a little laugh for everyone, but it's a nice purple, Daniel Smith. And then we have this light green. I'll hold it like that so you can see that, the Tolland's, and an orange Art Creation that came in my set. And I will be using Winsor Newton. We're going to be doing one of my favorite techniques, which is puddling. And everyone does it in their own way, maybe adapts it. I'm going to be using paintbrushes today to show how we can apply water wet on wet, and then we add the color, and then we're going to use these other paintbrushes to pull the colors around. I'm going to use just the tips, and we're going to let the white remain on the page. Here is the 10 millimeter one stroke I will be using to pull the paint, and then I will be using a 6 round to also pull the edges. So this is about color. It's not about making a scene, though the nice thing with watercolor is when it dries, a lot of dimensions can form. A lot of natural layering and shading can happen that might make you see images. So we're going to focus on just getting some color on the page right now. But before we add the color, we need to put something down for the color to be in. So we're going to get our brush wet, and we're not going to dry it off. I have very cold water that helps the paint, and then I have my cloth. You can use paper towels. I have a cloth that I've designated as my painting towel. So I'm not going to dry it off. Remember to go with the natural motion of your bristles. We don't want to smush the tips. And I'm just going to come and get some water on the page. So I'm painting with water for a minute, and I'm just getting some nice water on the page. A natural motion of the brush. I'm touching the page oh so gentle, very gently. There's no need to smush it. And then now we need to put, the water can just sit. Yupo really repels paper. I mean, I said that wrong. Yupo really repels water, so that is very nice. My water is just going to sit. I have this little vintage plastic, hard plastic dish here that I'm going to use for my palette to put my paint on. So I will open my purple and I will put that on there, just a little dab. And then I will open the light green. And the nice thing with these watercolor tubes is I can let them sit if I don't use them all, and I can come back and rehydrate them with water. So we have our little colors in our little dishes, and I have the water on the page. I'm actually going to start with a nice orange here, and we'll just go in there with that. So now my brush is wet. The more water I apply to the color, the thinner it will become, and also the more paint I use, the brighter the color will be. So the nice thing with puddling, I'm going to just shake my brush off. Not shake it, but just tap it off a little. The nice thing with the puddling is it will just take the color and kind of run with it. So I'm actually getting a nice little bit on the tip of my brush. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm just going to gently touch it to the water. And I kind of let the water carry it and splashing in the different areas where I know I put the water. And the water just kind of takes it around the page. You can get some natural mixing colors. Now I'm just kind of scraping off the little paint that's on there. I'm going to clean my brush, and then I'm going to come in and just drip some more water on here and kind of just let it come down and drip it on the color that's there. You can also rotate the page with your hands. We're not doing that today. What I'm doing is getting more water on the page because I really want you to see this orange. I thought I had a little bit more on there. So now I'm going to come back in. I'm just kind of going to gently dry off my brush because I want to grab this paint now without dulling it. And I'm going to come in and just lightly touch the tip of my brush to the paint, or to the water, and see how it just grabs it and shoots it across the page there. The water will really just grab the paint. Now when this dries, right now I wonder if you can see it. You kind of can. There's a lot of swirls going on here. So I leave this to dry and they will just settle down on the page and create these dimensions. So we have some orange here. Maybe I think it's a little dull, so I just want to use up my orange here that I have. And I come in and splash some more. Oh, and I splash some more. Not really splashing, but I'm touching the tip of my brush to the water. I just grab it. I use my brush to just grab the paint. And I'm staying in the outline of the water that I created for myself. I could go on the outside. Now I'm going to clean my brush. And we're going to do a separate puddle of just green. So now you want to clean your brush good, because otherwise my puddle's going to look a little orange. Clean your water as needed. So now my brush is dry. I guess I didn't need to dry it because we're going to do a little more puddling. I'm going to come down here and paint a little swirl. If I'm not careful, this will bleed through. It's as easy as coming through with a little cloth or your paintbrush and just drying it off. Some people use Q-tips. A cloth works. The reason why I dried this is I don't want my puddles to connect right now. So I don't want them to connect. I'm trying to keep them separate. I'm going to refold this up here. All right, so I have this now. I'm going to come into my green. I have a nice little pad of green there. And I'm going to touch it here gently to the water. I'm just gently dabbing it to the water and letting the water take it. Maybe I want it a little brighter. So I'm going to come in and got a little more paint on my tip. And then I'm going to add it to it. And right now it's swirling. So the colors swirl in the water. If you've ever done that, those little at-home experiments with children, if you're a parent, I have. And the colors, the ones where you add things like dish soap to food coloring, I think I'm doing that right. I think that's the right one. And it makes it swirl all around. Well, that is a fun, that's kind of what it looks like here. All right, so now we have a miniature puddle there that I've created. And now I'm going to come in with this purple, and I'm going to carefully try and have the purple, oops, well, it looks like my brush wasn't that clean, so I'll just come in and wipe this up. It's good to keep your, if you're not trying to mix colors, really keep that brush clean. That's something, as a beginner at watercolor, there's a lot of little things that would seem obvious, but you just kind of learn them as you go here. So now we'll add some water here. We're going to swoop it up the side. I want a little purple swoop up the side, so I'm coming in here with this water, and we're going to add our purple. So we'll just come in with, I patted my brush. And I want a brighter color, so I get a little tip. And I actually have a little bit there. And I'm going to come in and just kind of follow that water. And touch it to the water. Oh, so gently. And it's creating a little mark, because I'm touching the page just hard enough that it's leaving a little paint mark from the filbert brush. I'm going to come in here and get the water. And the water just kind of takes the brush, the paint, takes the paint, and moves with it. And now, the one thing I really like about the filbert is it has this round tip. So I can get this nice effect that I personally really like. If I go like this, I can get that cylinder top almost. So one way to get a little effect is just pat your tip of your filbert and let the water, see how there's more water disbursement over here. So I'm getting a light effect over here, almost like a little shading. And then I can come down here. And so it's like playing with the water and letting the water move around. Pulling the water, swirling it. Right now it wants to swirl down here. Maybe I pull it. So now I'm going to show you how we can take the other two brushes and we can start pulling these around. So I'm going to start with this round one. And I'm going to pull on the orange and make it swirl. And I'm going to use just that very fine tip the very tip of the brush there. I'm going to get it, I don't even need to get it wet. You want to try and keep your tips formed nice, so that means don't try not to smush them, and clean them nice when you're done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to this orange, and I'm going to imagine that I want to create little veins almost that are going to come off of the orange. I'm going to use this little tip to just pull the water already there, this dry brush. I'm using a dry brush, and I'm just going to move my hand in a nice motion. Oh, so there's not quite enough color there. See? And I just keep going. I pull it down. I'm not worried that there's not enough color, because this water is going to start pushing it into this pattern that I've created. And I can come in and add a little bit more color too. That's one. Okay, so now I'm going to show you. We need a little bit more orange, I think. I'm going to open the orange just a little bit and add a little bit more. Oh. Let's kind of mix it in there, nice, gentle. Mixing it in, trying to keep my little tip. All right, so then I'm just going to gently come into this swirl of water that I already made, and I can see it on the page, and I'm just gently adding to that water to give it a little bit more color, because that's what I was hoping for. And then like that. Now I can come in and do it again. Let's pull this one up like that. And see, I have a great view here. I can see the water shoot up the little trail that I made for it. And then I can add just a little water to my brush if I think the pigment's too thick. And I can come in and trace what I did with a little water and just add to it. And then I can take I'm going to clean my brush now. I can use the tip of my one stroke. I'm going to use that very flat tip, very tip of that, and I'm going to be just using it to pull out like a sharp edge. And how my filbert gave me these natural little tendril looking things, I'm going to add to it and try and pull them down and accentuate it by also lightly touching the tip and pulling in the same direction, the same motion. And then I come around the side and I do the same thing. Now, all right, so that's an example of how we can use the tips of brushes to move around the water and create a design out of simple puddles. The white can create a nice contrast. If we start adding more water right now, we're going to connect colors. So I'd like to show you, if I use the tip of my round brush and I pull this one into this one, the water will start to bleed through the colors. This is a technique you can use if you want to mix the colors. The water will push it. If I add a little bit more water, it will start swirling these colors even more together. And then we'll have a color variance here at the base. I can do it here too. and connect them. And just a slight flick of the wrist sends that water going up into the other one. I can grab a little more orange and just a pad of that orange in there, moving it around, will create an effect. I can use my filbert to accent. I can take a little purple and accent this orange in places, and that will create an effect that will be pleasing when all the paint settles. See how it runs? Maybe I put a little down the tail. I clean my brush and it starts just moving. The water makes it move. Even if I touch it a little too hard and I actually touch the paper, it will start spreading it, the brush imprint, the stroke I've left on the page. It will start moving it. You can see the filbert shape kind of spreading. So that's a very nice little technique that I enjoy. Puddling can be an abstract way, a carefree way to explore painting without limiting yourself, without feeling like you have to make a scene or an object. It's a little at-home color enjoyment. Maybe a little color healing, you know? Just use the color to brighten your day. And it doesn't have to turn into anything. You can do watercolor on regular watercolor paper too, and puddling will do the same type of thing. So there we go. I'm going to let this dry a little, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you up close how it has dried. And the puddle is going to dry at different times, and that's going to create these shading effects. And it's also going to create, I call it almost like a topographic look. And because there's different thicknesses of water, they're going to dry at different levels and create these nuances in the picture that are really eye-pleasing. So don't feel limited, explore color, and we will come back and look at this when it's all dry. So before I actually stop, I'm seeing some areas that need a little bit more color that are just blank water. So I'm actually going to dab some purple into those, and just so we can see that. I'm just using the natural motion of the brush because the water is there, and I just want to give it some color to help it out. And that should definitely help it. So that would be good. I'm going to let it pull, and there's a thickness there, and I'm going to go with it. I might come in with my round actually and swirl this water in. Just gentle. Look at these swirls. What I'm doing is I'm pulling this water into this to make it affect the actual pigments that I have left behind, and I'm doing a swirl motion with the tip, oh so gentle. And we're just going to leave it like that now, but I wanted you to see that I'm adding a little extra purple here in a swirl.